Hi everyone and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 trends to use in interior design in 2022. As a design studio, we don't really run with trends on the whole. We design interiors to last for 20, 30 years. However, these are the trends that I've seen that have emerged over the last 2-3 years and trends that are here to stay for the long term. So there's certainly aspects of design that I feel very comfortable implementing in my interior design projects, and I highly recommend that you use them in your projects or your homes too. So I hope you enjoy it. So the first trend that I'd like to talk about is earthy palettes and natural textures. This is a trend that I've seen emerging for the last 5 years and it's in full force right now. And what I mean by earthy palettes is interior design schemes where it's not about lots of pattern, lots of colour, it's more about the textures of those materials. They're quite often in their raw form. So if we look at this project, you can see, for example, on the armchairs, they combine a very textured material, and then on the arms there's some heavily textured wood, and there's some warm neutrals that are coming through so it doesn't feel too cold. Everything feels very raw and natural. It's not about highly polished finishes, it's much more about brush textures and enjoying those natural materials with their natural beauty. The next trend I'd like to talk about is using antiques in interiors. Now, by no means are we a traditional design firm. We love contemporary classic interiors, but for me, the absolute best interiors combine different styles and different eras. So if you look at this project, for example, a lot of the furniture is very contemporary. You have the very pared back dining table, very modern joinery for the TV. And then if you notice in the corner, nestled behind the dining table, we have this burr walnut antique chest of drawers. And I think that just looks so elegant combined with the more modern furniture. It makes it feel more layered. It doesn't look like it's all been installed at the same time by an interior designer. It almost gives the impression that this is a homeowner who's collected their possessions over a period of time. And the other thing that I love about antiques is they introduce a beautiful patina into the room. This one isn't perfect by any means. It has cracks in it and you can see some wear and tear, and I think that adds to the beauty. The colour also draws out the tan colour scheme that we have in the cushions in the living room, so I think it just feels very cohesive, and it's a good example of how you can use a piece of furniture that initially might look like it wouldn't work in that setting, but actually in practice it works so well. So I'd say don't be scared to use antiques in your interiors. Even if you want to use them to create a contemporary interior, you can still do that. Number 3 is using banquettes. Now this is something that I've seen emerge a lot, not only in our portfolio for our clients' projects, but interior designers all over the world are embracing this trend. What it means is you put the dining seating right next to the wall, and that allows you to push everything slightly over that way, and it frees up some space elsewhere in the room. This is one of the more formal settings where I've used a banquette, but I think it works really well because it's all about everything else that you combine it with. Another great aspect about using banquette seating is that it's very comfortable. So for example, in this kitchen that we designed in Knightsbridge, we decided to put a corner banquette because not only does it provide additional seating and it really is good at saving space, but it's also very comfortable. So behind me in this photograph, what you can't see is there's a TV screen. And when we were designing the layout of this kitchen, we envisaged that the owners would sit there, maybe put their feet up and snuggle up and watch some movies in the afternoon. The next trend I'm going to talk about is metals, and not just any metal, but there's a real trend towards bronze and antique brass, and I feel the days of chrome really are over. It still has its place, but predominantly we're using these two metals, which feel a little bit more contemporary, and they also add some warmth to your interior. In this boys' bedroom we designed, you can see we've used an antique dark bronze throughout, so that's on the lighting next to the bed, down the doors of the cabinets next to the headboard, and on the open shelving. And I think this is a good example of how bringing some metal into your interior really makes it feel a bit more contemporary, adds a lot more interest. If we'd just done the shelves above the desk in timber, it would have felt quite heavy and a little bit boring. We've all seen that quite a lot, but I think the metal bands overlaid on top of the shelves really add a lot of interest in here. We aren't just using antique brass and bronze metals in bedrooms and living rooms, but also we're seeing that come into the bathroom. This bathroom is an example where it uses one of my absolute favourite tap ranges, which is by Jessie, and this particular tap is called the Eleganza tap. What I love about this finish is it's very hard wearing, it's very practical. Unlike chrome, if you leave water just sit on top of it, you're not going to get little watermarks. So from that stance, it's really, really good. But I think it also adds a lot of warmth into a bathroom, which is a room that tends to feel quite cold. But I think the antique brass really livens up this space against the cooler tones of the marble. A major trend that we've seen coming through, and if you've been on Instagram and Pinterest, you won't be able to avoid, is crystal glass. I think it's one of those trends that was really, really strong, and I personally wanted to see if it was around to stay before I fully embraced it. But having introduced it a little bit into our projects, I can wholeheartedly say I absolutely love it, and I think it's here to stay for the long term. There's lots of different ways you can use crystal glass in your project. It doesn't have to be all the windows. Here in this kitchen, we've used crystal glass screens that can fold across the space and close the kitchen off from the open plan dining area, and then they just open up into a pocket space so you can have it fully open plan as well. And they combine some reeded glass in there that gives you some privacy if the kitchen's slightly messy or if the client has caterers whilst they're eating. We are also using a similar idea in our project in Portugal with some freestanding screens that will be fixed to the ceiling and the floor that are going to have quite a similar design, and I think it works so well in a slightly more contemporary project. The next trend isn't just about being on trend, it's also about a practical consideration. So we are more and more increasingly setting rugs into timber floor so that you don't double up on materials, you don't have to have wooden floor go across the whole room and then put a rug on top. You have less material that you're needing to use. And it also works well with a space like a dining room. If you've got chairs that might be half on the rug, half off, normally you have to go oversize in the rug to make sure that your furniture won't wobble, but this allows you to have a complete level floor throughout, even though you have the effect and look of a rug. I particularly love using this design idea in bedrooms where, especially in the UK, I love a carpeted bedroom. I feel like it's just much more inviting and warmer, and when you get out of bed in the morning, it's nice to put your foot down on something soft. That said, I feel like we're moving away from wall-to-wall carpets, and it looks a lot more considered and neat if you have a timber border that runs around the perimeter of the room. It goes in front of all your joinery and then around where the skirting is. By doing that, I think it just looks a lot more tailored and a lot more contemporary. So this is something that we're doing increasingly on all of our projects. We're not just using this design idea with carpets and timber floor, but it also works equally well in bathrooms. In this particular bathroom, we wanted to use a mosaic tile, which I really love. It's something that we picked up when we were doing a project in America. And I think it works so well, it almost feels like you've got a rug in the bathroom. It's great for anti-slip as well because the different small pieces of tile kind of stop you from slipping over. But I think if you were to run that mosaic across the whole room, right into the skirting, where you might not be able to have a complete tile, it would look quite messy, and I felt like it needed some structure to feel contained. So we did a slab border around the mosaic, which gives this kind of rug look to the room, and I think works so well, and we're going to continue to use this on future projects. The next trend is lighter and warmer wood tones. I think a few years ago we were all using so much dark grey oak stains that we've kind of rebelled against that, and now it's all about the lighter wood tones. In this particular project we've used some panelling across the TV wall, and this is all in a very light maple veneer. And what I love about this particular design is by using the really light coloured wood, you get a beautiful contrast to the bronze beading that runs over the panels, and I think contrast is something that I'm continually trying to find in my projects. I think it really makes everything stand out and look more beautiful. This little dressing area is a custom dressing table that we designed for our clients' children. They wanted a double dressing table that would work for both the girls to get ready at the same time. and I absolutely love this finish that we developed. It's an oak veneer that we've then added a lime wash to, so what you're seeing is the natural colour of oak coming through, and it's a lot warmer than the other oak finishes that we've previously used and we still continue to use, but I think it just feels really uplifting and offsets the cooler tones on the walls and in the fabrics and adds some warmth to that room. So let's talk about colours. Everyone always wants to know about what colours are on trend, and it's something that I get asked about all the time, and I hate answering the question, but for you guys I'm going to answer. So I would say the biggest colour that's on trend right now, and again this is a trend that's set to last, I will put my neck on the line here on YouTube, I'm not going to take this video down. If tan and rust colours go out of fashion, this video will stay and everyone will know I was wrong. But I genuinely think we are all embracing these tan and rust colours because again they just bring a lot of warmth, and you can combine them with a really light colour palette like off-white sofas, off-white rugs, and it just needs a tiny amount to add some interest and warmth into that scheme. So I absolutely love this colour. I think in this particular project you can see it works really well with other natural elements in the space, like the wicker basket that you can see in the background. This bedroom is yet another example. It's from the same project, and this client didn't actually particularly love colour, but we managed to squeeze some rust tones in. I think I convinced them by telling them it was just 2 cushions so they could always get rid of them if they didn't like it. But it really shows you the power of what this colour can do. If you took those cushions away, it would be very light. There really isn't any other colour in the room, but it's such a strong colour and such a beautiful colour that just by adding 2 cushions, it adds a lot of interest and totally changes the feel of the room. Okay, screens. Everyone loves a screen. These were the first ever screens we did, and I think it must have been about 7 years ago. You walk into the entrance hall and this sitting area is right there in front of you. And we loved the open plan style of it, and our client didn't want to put any doors here, but they kind of wanted to create some kind of separation so when people are walking in the front door, they don't feel like they're walking straight into that sitting area. I came up with this particular design because if you look into the garden, you can see there's the swimming pool area, so it kind of reminded me of the pattern that you get on water when the sun catches it. And I think the organic shape lends itself really well to this space where there's a lot of angular lines, the rooms are very square, and it just really breaks up that and makes it feel a lot more interesting. Textured walls. Now walls are almost becoming art in themselves. We are increasingly using interesting wall coverings, whether it's polished plaster, wallpaper, even suede or panelling. In this particular project we did a polished plaster, but it's not your typical polished plaster. It has a very heavily textured and matte feel, and I think that's a bit more interesting than always using the same polished plaster. And we wanted to go for this particular finish because it feels very raw and earthy, and it worked well with all the rest of the furnishings in here. When we first did it, I will be honest, in a building site, when you do this kind of textured plaster or concrete, it almost looks like you forgot to decorate the wall. But once everything else is finished and you layer it with the art and all the protection comes off, you can really see the true beauty of this finish. In this project we combined quite a few different materials on the walls. So we have panelling with suede on the walls, which feels uber luxurious, and when you're in there it just gives you a sort of cocooning warm feel. But we didn't just want to do one finish, so on the TV joinery, rather than just doing all timber, what we've done on either side, you can see there's some panels either side, and these need to have access because behind there is where the air conditioning M&E is. So we've done 2 different types of plaster on there. There's a smooth plaster and a textured plaster. And again, it's all about the different textures in here. So when the light comes in through the window, you can really see the beauty of that. Now panelling. We've seen a lot of bad examples of plant-on moulding. Not all panelling is created equal. If you want to embrace this trend into your home, there's a couple of things I would say you need to do. So don't just go for a really bulky plant-on moulding. Look at all the other architectural features in your home. Look at your skirting, your architrave, and try and pick out a profile that lines up with those kind of profiles so it looks a bit more considered. Try not to go for anything that projects too far from the wall. It can look really obvious that you've just put it on there afterwards and looks like a bit of an afterthought. I would say go tonal. I quite like when the paneling is painted the same color as the rest of the wall. It's a slightly more subtle look. And in this bedroom, you can see we've added in some silk wall covering into the panels. Again, we're just adding more texture, more interest, more luxury. Okay guys, that's a wrap. That's all my top 10 trends for interior design in 2022. I hope you've enjoyed it.